Calling to order the Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 meeting of the Planning Commission. Everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kristen, can you do the roll call?
Commissioner Bartis?
Here.
Commissioner Dolan?
Here.
Chair Kempner?
Here.
Commissioner Stapp?
Here.
Commissioner Hamame indicated she had a work obligation this evening and she would be absent. Commissioner Arnsman?
Here.
And Commissioner Woods?
Here.
Does anyone have a motion to excuse Commissioner Hamame?
Motion to excuse Commissioner Hamane.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? She's excused. Approval of the agenda. Any motions?
Motion to approve agenda for tonight's meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes of November 26, 2024. Any changes or motions?
I saw that the dates might be off by a day on page 3. It says the December meeting will be held on December 16th instead of December 23rd.
I will make that correction.
That's all I got.
Motion to approve with suggested changes.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Communications?
Nothing outside of the information provided for the public hearing this evening.
Thank you. Citizens' comments. This is a time for comments for items that are not on the agenda. You will have time to comment on the agenda item when we're discussing that. When you do come to the microphone, we ask you to state your name, city of residence, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Does anybody have comments for citizen comment portion? Okay. Moving on, public hearing PSU 0324 1818 Mortensen.
Yes, and thank you, Chair Kempner, for pointing out that this is PSU 0324. That was a typo on the agenda, not 0224. I will give you a brief overview. You'll recognize this address from a similar request that was made earlier in the year. This is a brand new application and is treated as such and should be evaluated against the standards of the special land use. There are references you'll see throughout some of the public comment that was provided in writing, and then also in the applicant's letter and my review too. It will note that this is similar to a previous request. They have made 2 changes though to this request as opposed to what was proposed before. In this case, they're also proposing a daycare for 7 to 12 children at 1818 Mortensen. There's currently a home daycare operating in that location for 1 to 6 children. There are 2 conditions that the applicant has proposed based on the feedback they received from their previous denial of a similar application. One is that pickups and drop-offs would be limited to Princeton only. This location is at the corner of Princeton and Mortensen. And secondly, that 6 of the 12 children under the applicant's care would be walkers and would not be permitted to be dropped off or picked up via car. You'll notice in my review memo, I've gone through each of the standards for special land use approval, and those are outlined for you in detail along with staff comments. Staff is recommending approval of this request. There's a couple things that I did want to point out. One, that the state of Michigan considers this a residential use of property. That's why all communities across the state have to allow daycare homes for 7 to 12 children as either a principal permitted use or a special land use. So they do consider it a residential use of property, not a business. I want to make that distinction. I also want to point out, I did have the chance to consult with our city attorney regarding whether or not this would be a new application, and those conditions that the applicant offered would make it able to be reviewed again by the Planning Commission and Council. And he agreed, after a reasoned review of the application, that there's not necessarily a hard and fast line here. It's a little bit of a gray area, but we were both of the opinion that this would be a new application and that the applicant has modified their previous request to attempt to address the main concern, which was traffic. So I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up. There's no site changes proposed, so this is just here for the special land use request, no site plan or anything like that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Kristen?
I guess, so just wanted to reiterate, the state law, Michigan state law, still considers this a residential property, land use.
Yes.
Okay.
So daycare homes for 1 to 6 children and for 7 to 12 children are considered residential land uses in terms of where they should be permitted.
Okay, by law by the state of Michigan.
By law, by the state of Michigan, we do have the authority to designate the 7 to 12 as special land
Special
uses,
land
but
use,
we
right.
would not have the authority, for example, to prohibit those.
Okay, thank you.
One point of clarification, you mentioned it is currently operating as a 1 to 6?
Correct.
Okay.
And that
Because-
doesn't require any special approvals or anything. It's just a sign off from us in the
Okay.
Community Development Department and approvals from the state.
Would the applicant like to come up and say anything?
Good evening. Nice to be with you again. Richard Rassel, 380 North Old Woodward, Birmingham, Michigan. I'm with the law firm of Williams, Ratner, and Plunkett. I'd like to introduce Christina Del Pizzo, who is the representative of the applicant here this evening, along with myself. There's also a number of the staff that work in connection with Ms. Del Pizzo's business, which is Little Seedlings. In this instance, the business is Little Seedlings of Berkley. There are other locations throughout our area. There are 3 locations in Bloomfield Township. There's a location in Beverly Hills, a location in Grosse Pointe, and a location in Livonia that are virtually identical to the location that we'd like to discuss with you again this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of you and to address a couple of the concerns that were expressed by this commission and ultimately the city council when we were before you in April of 2024. A couple of things just to refresh relative to what Kristen mentioned. We were here in April. We had a very similar request, but without the conditions that we want to discuss with you tonight, that we believe alleviate the concerns of this planning commission and alleviate the concerns of the city council and alleviate the concerns, or most of the concerns, of our neighbors. And we've done a lot of listening since April in putting this application together with the conditions that we're proposing. I've had many conversations with the city attorney. My client has had many conversations with the planning commission, planning department. My client has had many conversations with our neighbors in an attempt to try to find out what really is the concern about this residential use that we believe provides a very significant public benefit to the city of Berkeley and to its residents with safe, efficient, professionally run childcare, which is an essential function of the modern family and something that is in great need in Berkeley and in other communities in our area. We come from a place of experience, having run the other 6 locations that Little Seedlings operates that Ms. Del Pizzo is the head of, and along with her great staff. These people are pros. They approach each child's needs and the care that's provided to them as if these are their own kids. The Little Seedlings of Berkeley location at 1818 Mortensen is occupied by the primary child care, Shelby, who, if you would like this evening, would be here to talk to you about her experience in working for Christina. She lives at the home with her infant child. She does so rent-free as part of her agreement with Ms. Del Pizzo to provide the services. She treats the kids that come into their daycare facility 5 days a week as if they were her own kids. She provides that level of care. The property is not only very well taken care of, interior and exterior, but these children are provided an extraordinary experience so that their parents can have confidence and faith that their children are being taken care of during the hours that maybe they're working, both parents are working, or maybe there's a second job certain days of the week, or maybe there's other things that have to be done in a busy family that have to be taken care of. This operation opened for 6 children. It has been in operation. at this location. The 6 children that are being provided services here have benefited. The community has benefited. There hasn't been a single complaint about anything. In fact, many of our neighbors, we believe, in good faith here this evening, have realized that this is the one of the most low impact uses that you can have of any type anywhere. It has the effect of almost operating with the same physical effect as somebody with a home office. The children often commute together to the location. And as part of listening to this commission and listening to the staff, listening to my conversations with the city attorney, Mr. Crest, and the city council and our neighbors, we've come up with 2 creative solutions that we think allow us to go to where the special land use permit in Berkeley allows us to go, and consistent with staff's observations that they do not have any negative experiences on file at any similar facility anywhere in Berkeley that's operating under a special land use permit or otherwise. Those 2 conditions are this commission and others expressed concern about traffic on Mortensen. There is at times, especially in connection with the high school and other uses in schools on Mortensen or in the area, there can be traffic on Mortensen. So we've proposed to have drop-off exclusively on Princeton. Secondly, with regard to the slight modest increase to go to where our license allows us to go, which is 12 kids, for which there's a need in our community, we've proposed to have those children exclusively be walkers. This will be very easily to enforce because Ms. Del Pizzo is a professional business person. Her staff is a professional in the way that they go about their business, and their land use permit from the city of Berkeley is their lifeline in being able to operate. Just as any business operating in Berkeley or any residence that's operating under certain conditions or laws, such as those that suggest that we stop at a stoplight or that we yield to pedestrians in a right of way. Citizens of this city are no different, and Ms. Pizzo is no different. We are expected to follow the rules that are suggested to us to be appropriate, and these conditions that we've suggested will be enforced to the T. They will be enforced because we feel it's important. We want to be a long-term, not short-term, public citizen of this city. We've done a great job in getting off to a great start in our first approximate 6 months in operation. We've provided this public service and followed with the city's codes and ordinances as required and our licensing requirements for the state of Michigan. We feel we're providing a tremendous public service. We feel that our neighbors have become accustomed to the fact that we're running a very valuable and professional and extraordinarily low impact business. The 6 kids that are there by right now generate very limited traffic, but those kids will all be asked to drop off on Princeton, and walkers will only constitute so that the traffic and the parking issues, which seem to be the only claims, legitimate issues that were discussed in front of this commission and the city council, have been fully alleviated. We want to live by these conditions. We'll enforce them strictly. You have Ms. Del Pizzo's word to that effect, and the city ordinances and officers, they charge to link our land use permit and our ability to have an occupancy permit to that requirement. So the staff did a great job in analyzing this. The staff report is very positive. I think an essential component of the staff's report is that this type of business operates in many locations across Berkeley and without incident, regarding traffic, regarding noise, regarding light, regarding anything, including, of course, parking and other concerns. These operations often happen in order to service the public. They do happen in residential neighborhoods. They happen in residential neighborhoods across the state. That's why the state treats them as residential uses. We concur with the staff. This will not change the residential character of the neighborhood of this location. This is a Class A property on a Class A street that will stay that way. And we concur wholly with staff's suggestion, recommendation that this use be approved, or recommended for approval, by this body. I'm happy to address any concerns that you have. Again, Christina Del Pizzo's here. She's lives this business in operation every day. There isn't a question you could ask her that she probably wouldn't be able to answer quickly and efficiently for you. And then we have, you heard from staff at the last time this was heard, so they're here to answer questions and address any impact and experience issues that they have about what a great experience and wonderful opportunity it is for them to work at Little Seedlings in Berkley. Does anybody have any questions for me while I'm up here, but happy to address them at any point?
I have a question. How is there a plan or anything in place that you can explain to us on how you would enforce these things?
Yeah, it's very simple. When we have 6 children now. Some of those children are siblings. They come in maybe one car, or they carpool just naturally once they get to know each other. I mean, obviously the parents. When we were able to add 6 more children, these children will be required by contract to walk to Little Zealands, 1818 Mortensen. They will not be allowed to be dropped off either on Mortensen or Princeton, and the existing children will be asked to drop off exclusively on Princeton. This solution will not only alleviate any existing concerns, but it will actually lessen it. And by doing so, we think we've tried to listen. I always tell my clients in the land use and zoning context, we have to listen to what the local community's concerns are and see if we can address them. And in that regard, and the enforcement will be by contract, and of course, our neighbors and the people that live on Mortensen and the Princeton area all will be aware of, because it's public, about these conditions, and if they're not being met, of course, that's an enforcement issue, just like it would be for any business or any homeowner who has some sort of licensing or certificate of occupancy at their own home. So we're all expected to follow the law. Christina Del Pizzo will follow the law. She'll follow the ordinance. We could lose our permit to occupy. And as I understand it, this permit would run with the land. So if there was a subsequent operator, they'd be bound by the same conditions and would be so informed at the time of purchase, which is not this is a long-term play. This isn't anything that's being considered in that regard, but it would run with the land.
So would it be kind of honest-based? Would it be the people that are dropping off? Would they self-report themselves? Would it be the
I think
individual leasing the property?
I think the
reported them?
neighbors would certainly, if they saw that there was an increase in drop-off activity, especially on Mortensen, the city would hear about it. The code enforcement officers and the police of the city are charged with making sure that the ordinances and laws of the state are enforced. We could lose our business license with the city. We could lose our occupancy permit. I mean, it's in our interest to enforce this. This is ordinary course for us. This is new to us in Berkeley, but it would be something that would be essential. It'd be like having, if you were operating a restaurant, you'd have a ventilation policy that would make sure that you were living up to codes and ordinances, so you could lose your permit to operate. This is our lifeline, so we would look at this with strict. And if the city felt that would we consent to some sort of regular inspection of this condition? Of course we would.
And is it the same for, I guess, the 6 children that would go to and from via walking? Is that
Right.
the same sort of thing? They
Right.
would self-report themselves, or they would be reported by the
Well, I think
individual staying?
I think the business would be required to self-report and self-enforce. I mean, these folks are going to have a contract that says they have to be dropped off on Princeton. They're going to have a contract for 6 of the kids that said they have to walk. They can't be dropped off by car, and it's going to be incumbent on the business and the ordinary course enforcement process in Berkeley to make sure that happens right. And we expect it will. We have no reason to believe otherwise.
And then is there any contingency for like inclement weather where it might be impossible for them to walk?
I don't feel that there is a contingency that we've asked to be negotiated in this. It's a rule. We'll have to, there'll be inclement weather and kids will have to figure out how to get there with their folks, We're not asking for exceptions.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's very important to listen. We've tried to alleviate as best we can the concerns that anyone had about Mortensen traffic. And I think by doing what we're talking about here, we're actually reducing the overall effect off what a current condition is that we're operating under. And, and have been successfully operating for a number of months now without any concern by anyone. So, and again, I just want to reiterate, I think you folks understand this use very well. You've been considering it at more than one meeting now. This is a second, slightly amended, but we really do feel this is a public benefit. And this isn't the type of use where, you know, there are uses for which the business is operating clearly just in its own self-interest. This is different. Obviously, this is a business, but it's a business that operates in a lot of communities that are very, very, very similar to Berkley. And the experience in those communities has been nothing but positive. And we have a 5-month track record now here, and we are providing a significant public benefit to the community in connection with the operation of this use, which is why the state of Michigan allows it to operate in these types of neighborhoods.
We
Ultimately.
have another question for you.
Yep, I guess just to your knowledge, the parking on, because it's a corner lot, so the parking on Princeton and the parking on Mortensen, those, to your knowledge, are legal parking spaces. There's no parking signs or anything like that. That's being no parking enforced outside of the normal city hours, right?
I don't believe so. It looked like Kristen maybe had a thought on that she was.
I can confirm that there's parking permitted there. As far as I know, there is, but if you give me one second, I'll double check.
I want to make sure, because it seems like they're legal parking spaces.
There is driveway, according to the staff memo, driveway parking is available as a street parking along Princeton.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't parking in the ordinary sense of, you know, somebody's running into a restaurant for 2 hours. This is, you know, 30 seconds to a couple of minutes.
Right. But they're legal parking spaces, so not only.
That's my belief. I think Kristen, I just want to make sure Kristen's comfortable with my statement, but yes.
Yes.
So
yes.
anybody, neighbors could park there, somebody visiting could park there, anybody could park there, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So legally, people can park there now as is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
How many employees are, I understand the person working or living there is the primary attendant. Are there going to be, once, if 6 to 12 go through, will there be a second employee?
Christina, if you could address this question. I think on an operations question, I want to make sure we're getting you the right information.
Sure, and I definitely would like an opportunity at the end of public comment, if possible, if you have any questions, if you could call me up here to answer them. I'd love to have that opportunity. Okay, so 6 to 12, we definitely need another teacher, and that's part of the reason why we want to we want to grow, because Shelby is there with 5 children besides her own infant alone, and in our model, I mean, having 2 teachers in the home is really it's really like the best recipe for success. It's good for our teachers. It's good for the kids to have 2 adults in the house. So it would be 2. To touch on the parking situation, we heard you loud and clear that parking on Mortensen is not ideal. Not one parent has ever parked on Mortensen, even though they legally can. And if they ever were to, Shelby knows that she needs to let us know right away, and we contact the parents. We have such a long wait list for Berkley that if parents aren't willing to comply with us being good neighbors, then they need to find other care. And I think that if you were to talk to parents that are currently enrolled, they will tell you that they get multiple notifications. Please, we're trying to be a good neighbor. Please remember, to park on Princeton. Please remember to not walk on anyone's lawn. We really, are dedicated to being an asset to the neighborhood and not have complaints filed on us. In addition, our Bloomfield Hills location on Darcy, we've had 6 neighbors, like right next door. Boom, boom, boom. Their children run across the front yards right to our house. Like this is a neighborhood. That's the whole idea of a neighborhood, a home daycare, that, you're offering daycare services to your next door neighbor and the house next to them. And it's not a big commercial center. So, Berkley is a walking community, very much like our, location in Grosse Pointe. Berkley doesn't have buses for their schools, just like Grosse Pointe doesn't. It's very possible to have 6 walkers without, even in an ice storm. It's easier to walk across, the street or down one house than pulling your car out of the driveway. And that is absolutely the case over on Darcy and Bloomfield Hills. Not one of them drive. They walk right over because it's silly to drive.
So how many, Shelby's the person that's living there? How many vehicles do you have?
So Shelby has her vehicle, and her husband has a vehicle.
Okay.
But that's it. And then parents who drop off, they drop off on Princeton always.
So what I'm looking at, I mean, I have Street View pulled up, and
They
there's
do
like
park in the
one car
driveway.
garage and 2 spots, I would say, parked across the sidewalk.
Well, there's no parking overnight in Berkeley, so they are totally in compliance with parking, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Actually, there is.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, no. Just to further, I guess, so I can have understanding of this. Do you utilize the garage for parking a car?
The driveway.
Okay, so right now, you're parking both vehicles in the driveway.
I think Shelby is best to answer that question.
And then follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
You said that if you went to 6 to 12 kids, you would definitely have a second adult in the house.
We have to.
Would there be a chance that there would be a third adult in the
Never.
house?
Not.
Okay.
I mean, I might stop by. One of my directors might stop by for a few minutes, but not full time. Absolutely not.
And then another follow-up question, and it's just disappeared from my head. Gone.
It's okay.
Come back to me.
Sure. Does anybody else have any questions before we open the public hearing?
I have one on the, oh, yeah, you remember?
I
Go
remembered
ahead.
it before I forget it again.
Go ahead.
I seem to recall after a year that you can add a 13th kid. Am I misremembering that?
I think it goes to 14 in this.
So that's after 2 years without a blemish on your record. And actually, I'm so glad you asked, because all of our other locations, we have been granted 14. We don't have 14 in one. We don't have 13. We have promised our parents, just like we would promise you about parking, that we will never go over 12, and we've held true to that. We only have 12 children in each of our daycares.
Why is that?
Because in my opinion, from liability standpoint, from the care of the children, for the mental health of my teachers, 1 to 6 is a healthier ratio than 1 to 7. Cramming children into a daycare, I mean, it's such a bad idea for so many reasons. I actually opposed the state on that increase that was proposed during COVID to try to remedy the child care problem in the state of Michigan. I thought that was not a good solution. More child care is the right solution, not putting more kids with, a single adult. And I was an outlier in that. Other child care providers absolutely wanted that 7-to-1 ratio, and they got it. But we still, on my word, we don't have one house that has a 7-to-1 ratio, even though we legally are allowed to.
And it would have added a third adult because the state law is 7-to-1.
No, it would not. You would just have to stay in the age requirement ratio. So there are many home daycares that have 14 children, and two child care providers. You just can only have 4 infants under the age of 18 months.
Yeah, so I just want to go back to the walkers. Assuming you were approved and you got to the 12 kids, are there 6 kids that you're already aware of that you would designate as walkers?
We have a long wait list. We would have to go through the wait list and, tell them that that's the condition. And if they were to, agree to that, then, we could provide care. But if not, then they would have to wait for a non-walker position to open.
Do you know relatively where those families are located in
No, I do
proximity
know
to
that our neighbor that was in opposition to us, they moved, and we have a new neighbor who's expecting, and we have another neighbor that has, a few children down the road. I'm I'm not in a big hurry to fill this childcare. Frankly, like even the 6 that we have, we have 5 because Shelby's daughter is in care. We took our sweet time filling those positions, those spots. So, I'm not in a rush. This isn't about making money. This is about finding good fits in the community so that we can be sustainable and we can provide really safe care. This is a business with high liability, high risk, and we have to do it right or not do it at all.
So would you, in theory, would you turn down families that wanted to go into the daycare if they live, outside of walking distance or too far away?
I mean, if the first time they drive, they breached their agreement with us and put our business license in jeopardy. So I suppose they could say that they're walking, and if they don't, we've terminated families for breaching their contract before. In Beverly Hills, we have a neighbor with just a beautiful golf course lawn, and we had a neighbor a mom that just loved to run over her lawn, and we had to say goodbye to her. So that's not, sometimes we have to take a hard line to be good neighbors. But our families are so thankful for care that's so rare.
Any more questions? Okay.
The same is true, just to show you how tough we are on some of our parents. We have, like the city of Livonia, they put in their special use permit that we could only operate during certain hours. And parents that have been perpetually late, even if they paid the late fee, they're putting our business license in jeopardy. And so we've had to terminate care because we just weren't a good fit. They needed a child care with longer hours. And we weren't willing to put our business license on the line for, a pickup even 10 minutes later. They also, had a Halloween stipulation that we put across the board. Their special use permit, they wanted us to close at 3:00, I believe, on Halloween every year, and we've done that every year. And I'm sure, if we wanted to be, I don't even know if the people who made that rule are still, on a board, but we've held true to that every single year. And we've been in operation in Livonia, I believe, 5 years now. So, our word's important to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I am going to open the public hearing. It is 7:33. Again, if you have something to say, come up, state your name, city of residence, and you will have 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, Colleen Eastep. I'm at 1721 Princeton. I can tell you for certain that you've never talked to me. I actually tried to talk to you at the last commission, or the last meeting in April, and you ran away from me, wouldn't talk to me at all. So they have not talked to their neighbors about what they want and need. This is absolutely about money, or else she wouldn't be here looking for more people. If 6 children is too much for Shelby, she can bring in another teacher. That just means she has to pay another person, which she doesn't want to do. And that inherently is a problem across the U.S. It's not the number of child care places, the lack of them. It's the salary that these owners are paying. The average salary of a child care worker hovers around $35,000 to $40,000 a year. That is not a livable wage. So if all the child care owners would raise their wages, there would be no child care issues. The parking, absolutely. I'm on Princeton. It doesn't make me feel better that they're only going to drop off on Princeton, because that means more cars in front of my house. And I've had to self-report Shelby and her husband because they didn't follow the overnight parking, constantly parking on the street overnight. So if they won't self-enforce that, what else won't they self-enforce? the example of the restaurants having somebody come in and check, yes, somebody is actually paid to come in and look at the regulations for these restaurants. So they're asking the neighbors who don't want them there to enforce whether their residents are walking. And finally, you've got infants and you're not cared about inclement weather. You're saying that you care about the children, yet you're going to ask a parent who lives 4 or 5 more blocks away, who also is very busy, who wants just to get to work. They got to walk them there, drop them off, walk back, and then do that whole thing again. And if it's freezing weather, you're going to have an infant in a stroller for how many minutes when skin freezes, especially on an infant? It's just a bad situation. Have I run out of time?
You got like 45 more seconds?
Okay, so to continue on about the whole parking, again, Princeton, I encourage everyone to be there at 3:37 when the kids from the high school, they zoom down Princeton because they're trying to avoid the chaos that's at Mortensen and 11 Mile, so they use Princeton as a cutaway. And that's, again, when kids are going to be dropped off and picked up. So all around, it's a bad idea. I had a major typo in my letter. I wrote that I deplore the commission. I meant implore, but I find it deplorable that she's asking again to have this rule changed just so they can make more money.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kathy Van Wagner. I'm at 1862 Columbia in Berkeley. I do not live directly in front of the house, but I walk my dog past there every day, and I get a snapshot view of the corner every single day. I have seen 0 to 3 cars max, and 85% of the time there's 0 cars there. Usually there's 1 car dropping off, and it's a very brief drop off. And my experience with raising my daughter is the first 2 years she went next door to my sister's house, and it was lovely to have something in the neighborhood and something that was as close to your family type situation as you could get. So I am in support of it. I think it brings life and vitality to the community, and I hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
My name is Paul Baldus. I live on 1862 Columbia. It's not right in front of the house as well, but I'm all for it because I think it just brings life to the community and a service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Shelby. I live at 1818 Mortensen. I just wanted to address a couple of things that were brought up. One, we're sorry that we didn't follow the overnight parking. We were new to the area and learning. We do use the garage now for my car. My husband parks in the driveway, not on the sidewalk. So we're new to the city. Like I said, we didn't know those rules. We have made a mistake a couple of times, and we've actually not had a parking ticket, but we would have paid it if we did. It was just a warning. Also, I make more than the average salary. I'm really grateful for my job that with the Del Pisos, they not only give me a place to live, but they also pay me more than the average daycare salary. Was there any other questions for me? I feel like I've heard my name a couple of times, but.
Not that I can think of offhand, but most certainly when we get to the discussion portion, if we have questions, you are welcome to come up.
Okay.
You're the one for answering them.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice?
Yeah, I'm going up there. My name's Marco Del Pizzo. I own that property on 1818 Mortensen with my wife, Christina. There was a letter written, and I just had to say something. Someone called us a money grubber, and this was a cash grab. I mean, these are all a little bit ridiculous statements. Like Shelby said, that she's paid more than the average daycare person. And not only that, she gets to live in that house. It's a nice house. We've spent some time and money updating that house. Utilities are paid for. I think we even pay for the internet. So the profit margins are slim to none in a situation like this. So I guess I just kind of had to come up here and say that. I took offense to that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Kristen, are there additional communications besides what we have in our hands and our?
There were the two in the packet, and then what you have in your hands. And I would note one of them is really not necessarily a public comment letter. It was a letter from the applicant's attorney.
Yes. Yes, we have one that is from the applicant's attorney, stating much of what we heard earlier. We have one from Sarah Orleans, who is opposed to this. Gotta put the old lady glasses on. With questions about what a walker is and how to enforce, especially in inclement weather. Wanted to reiterate previously argued points from February. Traffic flow. Talks about drop-off vehicles. How hard Princeton and Mortensen are traffic-wise and parked car-wise. And we have one from Luke Orleans, which also linked the petition that went around in February. Make sure I get them all. Oh, I'm not connected to the internet. Hold briefly. Okay. I think I got it now. All right. One from Colleen Estep.
That's me.
Which pretty much references what she came and said in front of us just now. And Christine Benz, who resides close to there within 370 feet, objects to the application. Traffic is a huge concern. Property values. And worried about changing the landscape of the community. I think I have covered all of the comments. This is the last chance if anybody else wants to come and comment. Okay, I will close the public hearing at 7:43. And before we get into the deliberating, I just want to stay on the correct side of any ex parte contact. I just want to say that in May, after this had moved through, or after the last version had moved through Planning Commission and Council, the applicant had asked to be part of the Facebook page that I admin and had messaged me about it. I told her it's really only for residents. And I made a comment about one of her families causing quite a stir about that house turning into a halfway house, at which point she explained to me that that's what she was going to do with this home, and it was more, it was smarter financially than to run it with 6 children. I think that's about it. But I just wanted to put that out there because that was a communication that we had had. I thought this was kind of said and done, and this is a new one, but it kind of is gray line. So,
Can I comment on that?
I'm just putting out that there was a communication between the two of us that the rest of the commission was not privy to. Sure. Clearly, you've changed your mind. So, you know. All right. So. Now to the deliberation stage. Does anybody have any additional questions or thoughts that we need to ask before we start talking?
To the applicant or to?
Whomever you might have a question for.
No questions.
Oh,
but
okay.
You said thoughts as well.
I did say thoughts, and then I was like, I guess maybe that goes into the deliberations. So, I feel like I listened to most of
I guess
the-
I have one question,
Yeah.
and I'm just belaboring maybe the point. Again, state of Michigan law says that this would be treated as a residential property, right?
It says this is a residential use in the sense
Residential
that
use.
these are permitted in residential neighborhoods.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's a residential neighborhood. It's a use permitted under special land use considerations. My question is, Ms. Del Pizzo, you mentioned something about, if your clients don't follow the rules as you outline in a contract, that you would be in danger of losing your license. I guess, what does that have to do with the state of Michigan licensing?
Well, I think maybe we can both answer the question. The comments were made by me, so I thought, and they were somewhat legal in nature. We have an occupancy permit to be in the location that we're at. If the occupancy permit has conditions attached to it, the occupancy permit can be lost if those conditions are violated. That's what I meant. I don't know that the licensing from the state of Michigan is linked necessary to a land use or zoning permit, but the city of Berkeley sure is. And if we were imposing a condition on ourselves to comply with a certain type of regulation and we were not living up to that standard, just like any other residence or any other business in Berkeley, we're subject to any form of penalty that would be appropriate, including in this instance, the loss of our occupancy permit. That's what I was trying to iterate. And this is when businesses and residences take on responsibilities, they do so with a commitment to follow the process and a commitment to follow the law. We're making a commitment to have our clients, our customers, be contractually bound. We're also making a commitment to the city when we agree to our occupancy permit and to the conditions we've imposed upon ourselves relative to parking and traffic to comply with them. There's no reason to think any different, I believe. And the policing of that would be on us. It would be certainly subject to anybody in the neighborhood who saw different, and or code enforcement and other forms of the police power in the city. So I don't have any concern that conditions that we're offering to be legally bound to would not be adhered to. I think that would be unfounded. We certainly believe, we certainly intend to live up to those commitments. We wouldn't be standing here making them in a public forum with a publicly operated business if that weren't the case.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate you trying to meet the city at its concerns. But as a veteran daycare payer, I've been part of daycares where similar situation. There's not supposed to be loading, unloading in a certain street. People do it. Why? Because it's Michigan, and weather changes every 5 minutes. I've never heard of a requirement of a daycare to have half their clientele walk. Honestly, I just don't see that as feasible or safe, frankly. And it's human nature, regardless of weather. You're in a hurry to go to work, you're going to drop off the most convenient spot. I know that's what you want to enforce. And I don't blame people. I mean, you're dropping off your kids. You want them to be safe. You got to do things. So that's my concern. And, I think everything else from what I understand from, you operating your businesses, I mean, obviously you have a very loyal clientele, workers. You guys seem to be, I don't know about your other operations, but my impression is you do care. My issue is, and I think with, others as evident through public comment, is just the location of the place. It's not so much the operation. It's the realities of the location. It's the realities of the traffic issues that are not your fault to begin with. It's just the realities of it. And I think promising something where you're making little kids get carted blocks away to the house. I mean, I would personally feel bad to see, you get enough complaints where, okay, we've had it enough. There's too many people dropping off our kids, their kids in front of your house. Let's revoke their business license. I mean, like, I don't think anyone wants to do that. But it just seems very, very, far-fetched for me to believe that. Yeah, sure, in the first few months, I could see that happening. But, human nature takes over. Desperation takes over when someone needs to be somewhere, make an appointment, bad weather, etc. Secondly, you mentioned that you're not really in a hurry to fill the house. I guess, have you had any consideration of, waiting a year to reapply to get kind of used to the neighbors and neighbors used to you? I mean, it seems like it's kind of a short window between, was it April or May till now? I mean, it's, barely been 6 months. Would it be, and to make that effort to reach out to your neighbors and have that face-to-face conversation? Because, I see a lot of these letters, and not only from, our session here today, but back in April, there's a lot of concerns out there, and it seems like they've been unanswered, and a lot of that could be solved by just simple face-to-face contact. That's my observation, anyways. So I think those are my main concerns. Is and that's one of the sections through the special land use approval process or through the application. Is it harmonious with the neighborhood? And from the information that we have, it doesn't look like it is at this point. And then the other one, lastly, the code enforcement issue. I mean, there's people that park overnight on sidewalks, and it drives me nuts because I do walk my kids to daycare, and we have to go around in the driveway into the street, and it's, you call code enforcement, and rarely do they do anything, and then it's back, 5 days later. So I mean, that's just like one extra step of having to watch over your neighbors, and I don't want to put that responsibility on your fellow citizens or or the street of your fellow neighbors. So I think that like I said, I think you do come from a good place. I think unfortunately it's just for me anyways, the issue I have is just the physical location of the daycare. So
Can I offer one comment? Since walkers, I think, is going to probably be a subject of discussion. I'm sure you have sibling pairs at the daycare as well. Would it be amenable to the applicant to consider 6 walkers or with an existing sibling in the daycare? Because I assume the point is to limit drop-offs and pickups.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
So that just might be something to consider.
what's that?
That instead of saying 6 children have to be walkers, they have to be walkers or a sibling of a child already there in existing care, because it'd still be one car dropping off and picking up.
Question?
Question for Commissioner Woods.
I'm going to invite you to sit back down, and if we have more questions.
I do have a number of additional comments, but I can save them for the appropriate time. Thank you.
Well, all right. So I'm kind of curious. You said the streets of Berkeley are not safe to walk. That's your concern. You did.
I said when I have to cart my child into the street, that's not safe.
Right. But when you're addressing them, you're saying you're concerned about the walkers and not being safe to walk. So, I mean, I'm kind of confused on that.
No, I was giving my perspective of what's it like to have to rely on code enforcement with regards to parking.
Right.
I think, if I'm correct, you were talking about having to walk around cars that are parked over the sidewalk, so he has to go into the street with his kids on the way to school.
I believe he said it's not safe for the walkers to walk. And it might have been in winter, but just curious.
I mean, so what's your point?
Anybody can walk on the streets. They have an infant to toddler. I guess I'm not sure why you're holding this against the applicant here when it's not against the law.
No, I'm saying that in inclement weather, you're less likely to walk or want to walk if it's 0 degrees out, if it's storming out.
Okay. So, kind of have a few points would like to make. Because I think this is interesting, viewing this within the laws of what we're trying to look at here. Legal parking on both sides of the streets, right? Correct? State law says to treat this as residential use. So it's not like a business. We're looking at it as residential use. I'm assuming the person living at the house can apply for overnight parking.
They could through the city's overnight parking program.
So that is something
yes.
very new that came out for Shelby.
They would also have to prove a hardship.
To prove a hardship, right? You can still
And
apply.
Corner lots do count as a hardship.
Right. So that could actually be something to help resolve that. I guess perhaps public safety, if it's so bad traffic-wise there, maybe public safety should put their input into this.
So I did reach out to public safety as part of the prior request, and they did not report any incidents of increased speeding or anything on Princeton or Mortensen, in their opinion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess that seems to be it for me there, at least on my comments currently. Thank you.
For me, my position is I still support. I don't even know if this walkers thing is necessary, honestly. I would still support the 7 to 12. But if it's self-imposed and the drop-offs are self-imposed on Princeton, then fine. So, because I still think the conditions for special land use are upheld. I know it's an issue for daycare. Talked to plenty of people that have kids that would like daycare in Berkeley, or they're on waiting lists everywhere else, and it seems beneficial in my opinion. As far as the location, I think we talked about this before. If not there, then where would ever be a good spot ultimately? Like, I think no matter what location you pick, it would probably generate some of the same issues that people, I don't think it's anything unique about this location compared to like any other location for me that I would make a difference for it. And I live in the neighborhood there, so I drive that twice a day going to and from work every day. And I see plenty of other weird violations that are going on by other people that live in that area. And, it's not detrimental. So it's, I support, I would support the walking and the Princeton thing too, but I don't even think that's necessary in my opinion.
When I first saw the application, I was like, yeah, that seemed like a very reasonable thing that, they were offering. But to be honest, the more I thought about it as the days have gone by, I'm like, I think this lot is hard in my mind because it is a corner lot. And Mortensen's a very busy road. Being a corner lot, you can't, you have to be, I think one of the people on the letters indicated, you have to be so many feet from the stop sign, so that's an area that you can't park in. As the days have gone by, I'm falling back to the safety, traffic. How would anybody enforce this? So I'm stuck with, I think that's item number 4.
I get stuck with the enforcement too. This is, in any practical way, impossible for the city to enforce. You're going to see people dropping off. Well, no, we're ones that can drop off. So now, like, we're trying to have police officers stalk it to figure out and then double check with the list. And I'm sure a few years it's fine, but this is also runs with the land. So 20 years from now, right? You still have to have walkers, and if somebody else is coming in there and doing the exact same thing, then they have to get it becomes near impossible to try and navigate that. And I'm not sure that increases safety because yes, we get cold days, right? And it might be physically safe to walk, but it also might have a wind chill of -10 degrees. And I would not take my toddler out in that. I would not take my infant out in that. I suspect there are probably state of Michigan requirements about the temp where you can have children outside playing and things like that. And I would think that the same thing would hold true with children when I'm taking them to and from, right? There are thunderstorms. I know that I've sat through really scary thunderstorms waiting in that pickup line for my daughter that I wouldn't want to be walking to pick her up, and I wouldn't want her walking to come out in. I don't know that it's safer to demand that these children be walking. And also, like, how realistic is that? Like, maybe right now you have 6 neighbors that are very close that have kids that would be willing to. And unless they're actual baby making machines, that's going to run out at some point. And those people will still live there and have children in school, not babies. And then what? I find the walking thing super problematic.
Yeah, I think, personally, to the applicants, I think it's clear that you care about the service that you're providing and that you do want to create a benefit for the citizens of Berkley. So I certainly don't question that from you. But I do kind of feel, and this was maybe a good point by Commissioner Woods, maybe it'd be great to wait a year and kind of, flesh some of these things out, because I feel like we're kind of in the same place that we were in April. And I think it's echoed by a lot of people up here, is it's, in theory, the walkers and, having it only on Princeton, addresses those issues from April, but in reality, it doesn't necessarily, because it's almost unrealistic to think that we're going to, by contract, make 6 or maybe less than 6 families walk 6 children every single day, no matter what. And if they can't, then they're going to basically be let go out of the daycare. I mean, it's hard to fathom and realistic with, there's emergencies that come up, and, sometimes kids wake up late, and sometimes there's snow, and sometimes there's rain, and you can't control a lot of the aspects around that requirement. So having that play out in practice, I think most of us believe that's very difficult. And then, kind of relying on the city of Berkley to police it for you is kind of a burden on the police or, the code enforcement to say, well, the people will adhere to it, and if they don't, the residents will report them, or Berkeley code enforcement will catch them, or the police will be monitoring the site. It's kind of unrealistic to think that they'd be circling the daycare to do that, as opposed to. So then we would rely on, the parents that are required by contract, or the individual living in the house, which, not to question their honesty, but it would be counterintuitive to their position. So it's difficult for us to kind of wrap our heads around those two things being something that would shift our position from April to a new position, in December.
Just to comment a little too, not all of us. I want to make sure.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think the weather part is just, I'm not really sure it's like a factor for me from a walker standpoint. Like, I think it's probably, yes, it's a parental concern maybe, but like from a home business standpoint, I don't.
But it's not a business, it's a residence.
I said home business, yeah. So it's a home business, and I don't know, like, it's not on us, I don't think, to be concerned about weather conditions for their clientele. Like, if this is the posing part of it, that is part of a contract when you do daycare, and you get charged if you're picked up late, your kids. I've done this before. This is a whole thing. So, I don't know. I'm not really concerned about the weather and sort of this whole hoopla around, like, it'll be too cold and people will do this and do that. Even with 1 to 6 kids, it's probably going to happen too. So that's not a big difference. Second point is the policing part. I want to make sure we have no complaints on record from 1 to 6 from any residents.
Correct, not a single complaint.
Yeah, operating at 6 now with no complaints, I'm just putting it out for the fact, even though if it's been 6 months, it's running well. And from a standpoint, if we're taking per fact that complaints are a measure of how something is running well, then right now it's 0. So,
And I did check too. We have home daycares operating in the city,
Correct.
including some for 7 to 12 children. We don't have any complaints on any of them.
Well, we have one at this address operating, right? I know, yeah, but I mean a home daycare. So I mean, it's not that we don't want a home daycare.
Well, right, but I'm saying from a complaint,
complaint
from a
standpoint.
Right,
complaint
yeah.
people
standpoint.
do not complain about it.
Well, and I think that goes to, so I feel like that is my points, is I feel like Commissioner Bardis is thinking we probably don't even need this walking requirement.
Right.
And he doesn't have any complaints. So he's in the same position he was in April. And that's what I'm saying, is I'm in the same position I was in April, but on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's working.
It's working too.
And I guess, can I ask the applicants or even the Shelby who's there, have there been any traffic-related incidents or crashes involving your vehicles or vehicles of the clients dropping off, picking up, anything like that? None at all. None. And
She
then
wasn't at
also-
the microphone. For those watching at home, she
Sorry.
said no.
Could you,
None at all.
could you just say none at all?
No, Shelby indicated no.
None at all. Okay. And then even with the staff reaching out to public safety and saying that they have no concern over traffic or any safety in
But
that
the
area.
last 6 months have been pretty good weather.
So this was part of the prior application. So when I reached out to public safety, they don't have any new concerns, but also I checked as part of the prior application and they had no concerns then either.
Of any place in the city of Berkeley, not just this
No, I
location?
specifically asked about traffic concerns on Mortensen and Princeton, if they see increased incidences of speeding and things like that. They said no. Not concerns about
Okay,
dropping off or anything.
gotcha.
And I guess we could also, because I don't want to invite complaints now that, we're saying there haven't been complaints. But, I mean, I guess that's with the caveat that you don't take the opposition as complaints. You take it as just opposition. But also, I would say it's working well at 1 to 6. And that just stands for its own sort of premise, but that doesn't mean it would work well at 6 to 12. It doesn't mean it wouldn't work well at 6 to 12. It just means we don't know about that aspect yet. What's working, for one hand, we can't really say what would work and what wouldn't work for the other hand right now. That's kind of a hypothetical sort of situation. And that's why I still think, all we can do is look at what is, and to me personally, it feels like what is the same as what was in April right now. But I do like the idea of fleshing that out more and coming back once you have, talked to all the neighbors and you have kind of thought out some of these, compromises. Because it seems like you're willing to work with the city to try and get something done. And I want to encourage that. I want you to do that. But I feel like these aren't I feel like these compromises aren't well thought out. And I don't want to,
Well,
I'm not here to give you compromises.
Okay, this is our deliberation time, so I'm going to invite you to sit back down unless we have a question for you, but this isn't like a back and forth time. This is
would
our
just
deliberation.
and I know not now, but if you could indulge just a quick comment and a suggestion at the end of your deliberations, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
And I don't know what they are, is what I'm saying. I don't know what the right proposed compromise is. To me, I just feel like these might not be it
Can I
because
make
they're
a-
not fleshed out enough.
For discussion, it sounds to me though, even if no one is willing to offer, which I get your point, the core location issue is never something that's going to be compromised by anybody that doesn't want to see 7 to 12. Because the location is something no one can ever change.
At this space.
At the space, correct. So in essence, 7 to 12 in some people's minds is forever a no-go.
And not doable in this space. I mean, I guess it's conceivable at some point in the future that like the traffic conditions may change. You'd have to get rid of a school or something. I don't know how that would happen. But there might be some scenario in which those things that affect like the traffic and the parking might change.
I guess
But
what
I would agree that like,
And just as an aside, like a place in Berkeley, area in Berkeley that would, in my mind, be best for this type of use is the lower density portion north of Catalpa, in that neighborhood, where the lots are a little bigger, a little wider. They match up with some of the daycare centers they already have in Beverly Hills and Bloomfield. So yeah, that is, for me anyways, for the 7 to 12.
having two schools right in that area makes it really hard. The traffic over there is insane at school time.
I guess the traffic to me is still a perceived issue because based on like factual information from public safety, there's no incidences. You could pull up the crash reports and they don't monitor speeding there or whatever. You know, like that's my basis for this from like a traffic standpoint, not necessarily like I feel like this is a bad street type of thing. The other thing is, you know, from a master planning and sort of community standpoint, I'm still thinking it's beneficial overall to promote and have daycares within the city because of the sort of the drive for families to live here and to have that service. So another reason for me that it seems beneficial.
I mean, and I do see that it seems everywhere has a need for daycare. There are always wait lists, and I get that. For me, it doesn't take away the issues with this specific location and the traffic, and the parking.
And it's, you know, and I know we keep going back to, you know, we checked with public safety. You can look at crash data, et cetera. I'm just going by what citizens in the neighborhood have presented before us. In previous public meeting, I remember instances, and it's not due to a use or a daycare. It's just the reality of that area, the reality of living on Mortenson, the reality of living on Princeton. And, you know, you're not gonna, you know, I think that one person said, you know, they get their side mirror knocked off all the time and they don't report it. But it's just that I'm going by that type of information, firsthand knowledge that isn't, you know, necessarily formally reported. So that's what I'm going on.
True. I mean, I live off of Mortenson, off a couple houses from it, and drive through there. I mean, honestly, probably everyone that lives there is also an offender of many of the things they're talking about. So it's also worth a grain of salt from that standpoint, in my opinion, that it's you're looking at yourself from the inside for these type of issues that we're saying.
But isn't that a good argument? I mean, if people are already
No.
doing it, why
Yeah.
would we encourage more of
No,
it?
it's
Not. I don't
We're
think.
presuming that all these people are going to be illegally, like, guilty before doing anything.
Yeah, I don't like that
They-
stance.
We,
Yeah.
I don't think
don't
anybody's
think
assuming
that- I
anyone's
don't think
guilty.
that
you guys
at
are
all.
all presuming.
We're talking
Like-
about the realities of the traffic on the street.
Which, again, we've had staff, public safety,
Yeah.
has said there are no issues there.
They've said that there's no crashes there. Have lived experience from trying to leave the elementary school. There's a lot of issues there.
Martinson's
I have
busy
not, in
road.
fact, gotten in a crash. That doesn't mean it doesn't feel crazy there. It's not like I'm on
So you have to
super
wait a
hyper
minute.
aware of how I'm
Which is
driving
good.
through there.
You should probably be, but nothing has happened.
Above
right?
and beyond my normal. And I
Nothing
will
has
tell you,
happened.
I have gotten one ticket in my life when I was 17. So I'm
mean,
a
you
very
could-
aware driver.
Okay.
This is
have
like
you ever pulled
sets
up?
everything.
Have you ever driven down Mortenson and somebody is parked there, opening up their door right in front of you?
Sure.
Okay. So, like, it happens, right? I guess that's the thing. Like, these things aren't necessarily illegal that we're talking about, but, like, we're acting like they are.
Well, no, I mean, we wouldn't let anything, we wouldn't be having a discussion if it was illegal, right?
So
It
I guess
wouldn't
that's
even
where
be
I'm
in front of
confused
us.
about, where this is a traffic issue. There is no traffic issue.
There's no traffic issue in my opinion.
Like, there's not a traffic safety issue. Like, it's been discussed and brought up at least by the public safety. Like,
Again, just because there hasn't been any incidents formally recorded, that's not people who live there, that's not their lived experience. Do you live on there, Commissioner Arnsman?
I do not.
Okay, where do you live?
Uh,
What street? I'm sorry.
no, come on. This is
I'm
yeah.
just,
I have
I'm just
people.
curious.
I
Do you
can't park
take
on
that
one side
road?
of my
Do you
road.
take that road at all?
Yeah, I do.
A lot?
Not a lot, but I
Okay.
take it.
All
I
right.
take it during the school year when school's in session. I'll take it home when school's in session. I'll take it at different times of the day, in the mornings and at night, just to see how traffic's going. I like to drive around.
Okay.
And I rarely see people parked on the streets, if any.
Yeah.
And especially during, like, right before the high school is, I guess, in session. Like, I'm
I think what
I
I'm getting
understand
at is
people
your
feel
experience is
this.
going to be different than people that live
right,
there.
but
that's all.
we talk about dealing with, like, reality and facts.
Yeah.
But we're completely saying, well, no, we're just going to dismiss that.
We're not. We're accepting the
Okay.
input from people that live there. I don't know how that's denying reality.
Okay, this
staff,
feels like it's getting a little weird.
yes.
I would invite you to come up with your comment and suggestion.
Thank you. Just listening, and we promised that we would listen, and we've been listening to the city since April. So, in connection with that, I just have a final comment, final thought for the Planning Commission, and a suggestion. When we came in April, and then we were at the City Council in May, there was a tremendous amount of people against this project. I wouldn't say hundreds, but certainly there were quite a few. There was a petition. There were people full at these meetings. And I think that what we've seen today is that has been largely alleviated. The alleviation is because of the experience of living on Mortensen, having this, or in the area, having this use be there. Most of the people that were against this are no longer against it. And since that date, not only have we come back to you and listened and taken the traffic off Mortensen, which was the only concern, and the parking and the traffic, we've indicated that we will live with a situation where that traffic has to be generated. The minimal traffic that's going to be generated will be generated only on Princeton. And we will commit to the walking concept, as odd as it might seem to some people. I don't believe it's fair, and I don't believe it's reasonable to assume that we're going to violate that contract with the city, that we're going to ignore the staff's requirements, that we're going to ignore a special use permit, that we're going to ignore our certificate of occupancy. It's not fair and it's not reasonable to use conjecture and speculation that we're not going to live by the law, like every other citizen in Berkeley that's afforded the opportunity to live their life under the rules and regulations that are imposed upon them. The staff has twice recommended this. There is no traffic issue. There is no safety issue, but we've alleviated what little there is. And we've done that respectfully with the city input at the city attorney level, the management level, the staff level, and through this commission and through the city council. The amount of people that are against this is brought down to a very small number. The amount of people that are for it, we think, is very substantial in this community as we're providing a public benefit. The suggestion I have, because I said I would get to one, is that you pass this along for approval to the city council, and that we agree to come back to this commission, whether it be 6 months, whether it be 9 months, a year, 3 months, whatever you're comfortable with, and have a check-in to see if we're living up to these obligations, or if the room is full of people complaining about how much impact we're having on their community. Because we're very confident that there isn't going to be anyone. Maybe, I mean, I wouldn't say that. That there will not be any significant comment that would be negative. And I think that to assume and speculate that we're going to cause harm that has not been predicted by any professional in this matter, and that, or from common experience, and that we will violate rules that we're agreeing to be imposed upon ourselves is not fair and not reasonable. We're willing to put our money where our mouth is. We would come back at whatever interval staff or the planning commission or the city council felt appropriate, and we could have a check-in. And I think that over time, and picking up on the commissioner's suggestion, my eyes are horrible, so I'm sorry I'm not reading your name correctly. But, sir, you had a suggestion that maybe over time we could develop the trust of the neighborhood. And I think what I'm suggesting is let us get on with the operation of this very important business, and we will come back and show to you that we've earned just that. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have a new discussion point or a motion?
I have a question for Kristen, just to make sure everything is clear. I mean, regardless of our recommendation, it's going to go before council and they'll say yes or no.
Correct.
All right, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
Yep. I'd like to make a motion to approve PSU 0324 at 1818 Mortensen for a special land use citing that it meets the 5 conditions of section 138-653 and with the following amendments made with, I should say those amendments, right?
it's just part of the application now. isn't it?
With the following conditions.
With the following conditions, that pickups and drop-offs will be limited to Princeton only.
Yep.
And that 6 of the 12 children under the applicant's care would be walkers and would not be permitted to be dropped off or picked up via car.
Is there a second?
I second.
Kristen, would you like to call a roll?
Commissioner Bartis,
Support.
Commissioner Dolan,
No.
Commissioner Stapp,
No.
Commissioner Arnsman,
Support.
Commissioner Woods,
No.
Chair Kempner.
No.
Motion fails.
Somebody like to make the alternate motion?
I'm on it.
All right.
Motion to deny public hearing PSU 03-24, 1818 Mortensen Boulevard.
You need to include conditions for your reasons for denial.
Okay.
Is it not recommend?
And it's not recommended,
Yeah, it's
yes.
not,
Thank
it's-
you, yes.
Or recommend to deny, or
Recommend to deny PSU 03-24 on the grounds of the number 4, I believe it is. The proposed use is designed so that the public health, safety, and welfare shall be protected. Yes, I believe it is, on account that number 4 and number 5, I don't remember if we made number 4 and number 5.
Last time it was 4.
It was just 4 last time?
And then we cited traffic and parking as our issues.
Thank you. Can I ditto what she said?
Yeah, I'll get it in the, when I do the minutes.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Support.
Can you call the roll?
Commissioner Dolan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stapp,
Yes.
Commissioner Arnsman,
No.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Commissioner Bartis,
No.
Chair Kempner.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So this should probably be going to city council in January?
Probably the first meeting in January, but
First meeting in January.
one of the meetings in January.
Thank you all for being here and your comments.
Thank you.
Liaison reports?
ZBA meeting this month was canceled, so I got nothing from that.
Okay. Anybody?
Yeah, I went to the chamber meeting, actually right before this meeting. Nothing new. They have their new budget coming out and they're changing up their sponsorships, I
Okay.
guess, format. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the DDA meeting, it was a fairly short meeting because unfortunately, our amazing DDA director has put in his 2-month resignation. He has some there are opportunities that he's going to explore in Pontiac. So we're very sad and now, unfortunately, on the search for a new DDA director. And that's all I got because that was overwhelming. Anyone else up here? I will give you your time this time. Like stand-up comic it.
No, I can't do that. There wasn't much. We met last night for city council. The one thing that might affect this board is the reopening of Dorothea. Temporary. Well, the plans are kind of revamped to how to activate that space. Dorothea and Coolidge. They're by Camelot and Bombshell. So that little block there. So that's going to be reopened soon. The other thing is, thank you for if you participated in the lights parade. I know Chair Kempner did a lot for it in more ways than not. And the beautification committee had a float with the tree board, so it was kind of neat to do. And then obviously, happy holidays. It's right around the corner, so happy New Year. We won't see you again until January. Tomorrow for City Council, we have our strategic plan. So if you can make that, it's open to the public. 5 to 9 with a meeting at 7. So it's going to be in public safety. We'll come here for our meeting and then go back.
So you're having a strategic plan meeting first, and then a regular
kind of in the
meeting?
middle. It's a community block grant.
Okay.
So that has to be on our agenda. So it was kind of put on at 7. So it's a work session, 5 to 7, or maybe 6:55. We'll come over here. It's a one-item agenda, and then we'll go back and continue. So
Gotcha. Okay.
if you want to see people running across the street,
So hey, you can
show
do a
up early.
strategic plan and get a little break in the middle, and then go back and
Yeah, intermission to a council meeting, back to a strategic plan. So that's open to the public, obviously, both of those. So if you can make it, we'd love to see you.
Cool. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Kristen.
Nothing.
All right. Well, happy holidays, everyone, and happy New Year. And does anyone have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:27.